We all experience luck at some point in our lives, and we can only hope that over time, the good luck outweighs the bad. The problem is, sometimes we're not just hoping to get lucky, we're betting on it, and that can lead to a whole lot of problems.
But you learn to take the good with the bad.
You learn when to give yourself credit for the result.
When to blame yourself for the outcome.
How to live with the decisions you've made.
And how much luck is too much.
Our financial lives are no different. No matter how well we plan, luck will always play a role in the final result. So the real questions are, what story are you telling yourself about your ability to shape the future?
When do you give yourself credit or blame?
And how thin is the line between investing and gambling? Man, listen, if you had told me I was gonna be eating cauliflower and capers, I'd have called you a liar.
Well, this is not an original salad. Like, this is actually one of my favorite salads at Eke.
Yeah.
And I realized, like, oh, you know what? Like, I could just make this at home.
Did you see that Dave & Buster's is adding gambling to the offering?
What do you mean?
Like, you can bet against who's gonna win skee ball or like the basketball game. Like, you can bet on a winner at the arcade.
So if I go to any game, like,
I don't know how it works now.
like a video game or?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I guess, or like skee ball. Like, I'm assuming it's games that have a competitive element.
Well, every game at Dave & Buster's.
I know, but like against another person. Like, you're not gonna bet against the computer.
Oh, okay, so like the basketball game.
Yeah.
So I could actually have a shootout.
Yes, with
for
real money.
$100. Or is it like Dave & Buster Butts or something?
They didn't roll
Which
out.
is still real money.
Which is like, it's not free.
It costs you money, yeah.
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 I'm not surprised by it. I mean,
You can gamble on real games.
I was just about to say, like, the thing is, I'm willing to bet nobody thinks about that as gambling. Like, I didn't read the article, but
Yeah.
I think they just
I think they
see
called it betting.
betting, right?
Yeah.
It's gambling.
Or gaming.
Gaming, right, with money. Betting seems like a softer term. Gambling carries like this negative connotation to it.
Yeah.
We've been saying it for a while though, because I know I've been paying attention to it because it felt like maybe the last couple of years, everywhere I looked, it felt like if I'm watching a basketball game or a football game or anything, like it just seemed like a greater percentage of the time was not really talking about the game or analyzing the game. It just seemed like the number 1, 2, and 3 sponsor was some type of gambling thing.
DraftKings.
Sports,
yeah.
podcasts,
Yeah.
everyone is completely obsessed with gambling.
Money, money, make money, money, money. Money makes the world go round. I'm the talk around town. Remy gave me the sound.
DraftKings production.
Welcome to Bully Ball, presented by DraftKings.
Prize Picks got you covered when it comes to help you make some bread.
Can lead to big payouts.
Look, I love Prize Picks because I love to win money.
You know what's better than the NBA season? Winning some cash money.
Prize Picks, keep giving me that money because I'm going to keep getting it from you.
Exciting way to turn every game-changing moment into 100 times your money.
And then the other day, I was watching the game and then I realized there was like 3 different versions of the game. There was like the game in English, there was the game in Spanish, and then there was a version of the game almost from a fantasy bettor's perspective. So you're watching a bunch of people who were betting on the game, talking about the game, but from the perspective of wanting to make sure that certain things happen, or like being upset that, or happy that certain things are happening because they had bet on those things. And that's what really, that just seemed like next level to me.
But there were a couple people that said that the refs were getting into it, which is why you saw so many calls that were, you know, surprising.
Of course they are.
And then it was only a matter of time before the players got into it.
Exactly. And it's not just football and basketball, right? We just saw it with Shohei Ohtani, like biggest contract in Major League Baseball. Now they're saying it wasn't him, he's saying it wasn't him, it was his translator. I believe him, I have no reason not to. But it just, to me, just sort of speaks to the idea of like, you give someone an inch, they take a mile. And I think that's kind of where we are as a culture right now, where you make gambling a little less scandalous, and then all of a sudden you start to see where once you've a little crack in the door, now people have an incentive to cheat, or they have an incentive to pay somebody off because like, it's okay if I lose. And well,
it's not even just like the fact that it's easier. It's the fact that it's 24/7 and accessible through our phones. Like before, if you wanted to gamble, you had to walk into a gas station and buy a lottery ticket, or you had to be in a state that had casinos.
I'm sure you can still do that. I haven't seen one in a long time, but the little gas stations, gambling machine stations.
Oh, like a slot machine in a gas station?
I don't think I've been inside. I've not been into the backwoods of a gas station in a long time.
Well, you know, I went into one the other day because I wanted an iced coffee at the baseball game, and I saw the lottery tickets and I was really compelled to buy one. Like those are the only times I buy one, is when I'm in a gas station and it's truly like an impulsive purchase. Like, oh, let me get, you know, a couple scratch offs.
I remember when we first met, you used to talk about that. It used to be one of your favorite gifts. It was like somebody...
I still give my dad scratch offs for Father's Day.
Really?
Yeah, and I participate in all the office lottery pools. Now, I don't buy it on my own, but I can be convinced if I'm in the right environment.
Interesting.
To go ahead and do a little dibble dabble, see what luck got for me.
I don't think I've ever bought a lottery ticket.
That's crazy to me.
Never done it. Not even because I understood the odds. I don't have that interest in me. Even when I was going to Vegas, I think I might have walked in there with like a budget. Like, I'll drop $100 today.
So you just don't think you're lucky?
Historically, I've not been lucky. And so,
that's what it is.
Yeah, so I have no reason. I've never hit it big, so I don't have a high to chase. I do understand though why certain people would do it. I think the problem is, right, like, obviously it's fun. I understand the allure to doing it. What is concerning for me is, one, how it seems to be kind of creeping into the culture a little bit, and how people are treating it as an alternative to investing, right? It's this idea that, oh, well, everything is technically gambling because technically you don't know that anything is gonna happen. And so this is the same thing, and I feel more comfortable doing this because I'm a hardcore basketball fan, and I used to coach the game, and so therefore I'm able to understand this stuff the same way you might understand the stock market.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, except it's not the same.
Right.
Right? Like, there's not a long history of people who have successfully built a retirement portfolio off of gambling. Like, we have that evidence with the stock market and real estate and business. You don't really have that. And if anything, you've got the opposite. A bunch of people who have lost money and their lives have been completely turned upside down. And that to me is the rub. That's the challenge for me, is that a lot of people are kind of saying, you know what, that's cool, but the stock market's not really fun for me. And I have a short-term track record of having made a little bit more money while the stock market was down. So this is my rationale for why I'm gonna continue with fantasy football.
Interesting, because I do actually see a lot of the same behaviors happening in the stock market. It's just called trading, short-term trading.
You're right.
Like, it's not a matter of gambling per se, but you are betting on a short-term move of a company.
Yep.
And in most cases, at least with the people who I've talked to, they have very limited information. It's not like your old school traders who have all of the charts and the graphs and all of the information and historical data.
And inside information.
And inside information.
Yeah.
This is like, I joined this forum, I went on this Reddit board, I get this text message at 7 a.m. every morning, and that's how I make my plays.
Yeah.
And to me, that's risky. Like, that is a gamble. That's a bet. You can't explain why you're doing it. You don't know if it's repeatable. You're just constantly waiting for this information, for the plug, for the play, for whatever, to try to hope that you catch a company slipping.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. It's fun. Like, at least it looks fun. I dabbled a little bit. I ain't gonna lie. Like, back when the crypto altcoins were going crazy.
Oh, I remember.
I scooped up a couple, and I still got them. Like,
had
hoping.
a strong empty point of view.
It was like $300 worth. But like, I bought them because my dad had just come off a huge lick with Dogecoin. He had them at the peak and then waited, got a little greedy, and didn't have nearly as much money as he had on paper. Watched all that paper money go away, which is a common story. People get excited about what you see on paper, but nothing is real. Whether we're talking about a short-term trade or a long-term investment, nothing's real until you sell it.
Yeah.
And the trigger to sell is very different when you are planning on luck or when you are feeling that like luck is on your side versus when you are a long-term investor that has an actual financial plan with associated milestones.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing because I'm not hating on gambling, betting,
trading,
gaming, trading, or any of those things, but I do think the problem occurs, like, again, when that is something that people are doing as an alternative, or they're seeing it as having equal footing or an equal likelihood or probability of success as some of these other more traditional models.
Right.
And part of it is also just the wording. Like, I think the word traditional makes people feel like I'm not trying to do that anymore. Like, I'm modern, I want to be updated, I want to do these things.
It's not just the wording, it's the returns, right? Like, the returns over time look just as sexy as the short-term returns in betting, trading, gambling, whatever. But it's not an apples to apples comparison because one of the problems is that you start chasing that high. Like, one of the problems that it creates is that you start chasing that high. You start trying to double your money. You get that first 56% return, first 212% return. Now you're like, all right,
I know what I'm doing. I thought
Let me
about
find
it.
another 10 bagger. Yeah.
That confirmation bias starts to kick in. And again, I totally understand it because
And they want that.
you may have actually done some research, right? You did the research, you feel like you've uncovered something, you made that first purchase. I'm being mindful not to use the word investment. You made the first purchase or inserted this little bit of money or large amount of money. It paid off. You are 100% confirmed and affirmed in your decision and your abilities. And I think that's part of the challenge, is that when these things happen, you're calling it a high, but it's like this false sense of confidence. And when you're in it, you can't see anything else. It's just like the only thing. You feel like you know what you're doing. And unfortunately, like it can go either way.
And that to me is where the naming comes in, because I would call that luck.
Yeah.
You got lucky. And if I say that, I'm a hater. I'm diminishing
I was about to say.
what happened.
Yes.
Or
someone's intellect, or their capabilities, or their analytical abilities, or yeah, and that's part of the challenge.
Yes, but if it's not repeatable and you cannot explain it, that's what it was. Like, you took a big risk and you got a return, you got lucky. That's fine. Like, we're all willing to admit that there are some sort of external forces that impact all of our financial plans. There are things that we've been lucky about, but I'm fine saying that. I'm fine saying I got lucky. Like, I'm so happy we started our blog when we did. I'm so happy that we started investing when we did, because we benefited.
And the way we did, when we did. I wasn't banking on 20+% return on investment multiple years between.
No.
Like, I knew that going back to, let's say, 2007, 2008, that was a bottom, and there was probably nowhere to go but up from there. I knew that, right? History suggested this is a cycle, this was a low point. I recognized that was an opportunity. I could not have imagined that we were entering into the longest bull cycle in US American history. We benefited from that. And I do take some credit, to your point, for recognizing the moment, taking advantage of it, making certain decisions to make sure that we could ride that wave as it was going up. But I don't take credit for anything that was above and beyond what I had originally calculated, right? Like, I was banking on 10%, 12 to 15 if we were lucky, 20 plus, multiple years in a row. I wasn't banking on that. And we saw it again in 2020, which I thought was really, really interesting. And I think it was right around that time, because there were a lot of people who were like us, had been invested for over 10 years in the stock market, were benefiting from it. And I think a lot of the people who felt left out felt an even greater urge to kind of get their own version of that, which I think may have contributed to why we've seen such a rise in gambling over the last couple of years.
Because I'm with you, like, we were lucky, but the thing that differentiates our plan is that we were not planning for luck. We were planning for traditional returns, and we spent a lot of time managing risks.
Right.
And so when you are planning for luck, when you are hoping for luck or hoping to recreate luck, you don't spend any time managing risks.
Correct.
Because you don't know what they are.
Correct.
That's the thing.
The whole thing is risky, yeah.
That's the thing about gambling. It's lopsided information, but don't call that a plan.
Yeah.
That's the difference. Like, that's not a plan, that's a hope.
Yeah.
That is in some ways a strategy,
yeah.
But it's not something that you can bank on.
I think for me, the part that's really sad about it, like, aside from how corrosive gambling can be, because we know that is a very real thing, gambling addiction. What I don't think gets enough credit are the people who are in relationships or who care about those people. Because again, when you think about the more extreme versions of this addiction, and then you've got, in a lot of cases, women who are trusting in their male partners, their husbands, their boyfriends, or whatever, to be doing the right thing with our money. You're supposed to be the steward of our financial life. And yes, I understand that they gamble, but they don't have full visibility, nor that they fully understand it. Those are the people that every now and then we get that note, and they start asking certain questions like, hey, I feel like something's going on because my portfolio doesn't look anything like the portfolio that you guys are talking about, and I feel like we're supposed to be invested in those same things. And what they basically uncover is that their partner, their husband, their whoever is probably gambling a little bit more than they should. And that's, I think, the part that's really, really sad to see. Because I mean, you know, we've met several people over the last couple of years who have just kind of given it to their partners and said, you know what, he does those things or she does those things and I focus on this. And then they realize that they weren't just dabbling. Like a lot of that was them gambling and that money's gone. Like you can't get that back. And then it stings a little differently because it's not like the stock market. It's not like there's a cycle to the gambling, right? Like you're not gonna keep on investing in the New York Knicks hoping she's gonna win a title at some point. Like you're gonna go a long time. It's been a long time since New York has won a championship, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, like it gets blurry in certain ways, but to your point about risk, historical returns, there being checks and balances, like that's the difference between investing and gambling. When you don't have those things that can help regulate this process, once that money's gone, it's gone. Like there's no recourse, there's no filing a complaint. Like you made a decision, you checked that box, and if you lose, your future is gone.
It's a one-time thing. It's so sad. Like it really is. I don't think we're gonna look back at this period and feel good about it. Like I think we'll look back at it and feel the same way we do about a lot of the health crisis that we ignored because it is going to ruin families. And a lot of gambling addicts have written about it. Like they've written about how pervasive it is, and you know, it's ever present now, and it's on smartphones. I have moms who have teenage sons who write in and they're concerned because they can't explain where the money's coming from. They can't explain where the money is going.
Yeah.
They know it's not drugs, but it's something. And it's like, well, I don't even know how to begin to explain it to them, because if you've missed the last, and this is fairly new, like the last 6 to 10 years, I don't know how to explain like your son or your daughter or your husband or your brother, whatever might be gambling.
Because it just looks like fandom, right? He's just a fan, just like anyone else. He's entitled to watch the game. But if you start to see that he's a little bit more upset than he was last year or this game versus the other game, it's probably because he has some money on it.
Yeah. You know, I remember when we did that podcast about raising a rich kid, and we talked about Bo's investment portfolio, and we were talking about how we were taking different risks with his portfolio than we would with our own, because he's 7 now. But we were talking about how he owns individual stocks in certain areas. He has tech index funds. He has semiconductor index funds, just very different assessment of risks because he's so young. And because it's a good chance that he'll get lucky too on his own little bull run at the beginning of the AI revolution and technology. And so I'm just curious how you think about it. Like when you tell him his story or when you teach him to interpret it, how will you tell him the difference between taking a risk or hoping for luck?
So I don't know that what I would say to Bo is any different than what I would say to any other adult that I had that conversation with. I think it starts with the acknowledgement that there are forces at play that you don't have control over.
Correct.
Right? Like you can do everything right.
Absolutely.
But you also understand that there are things that can affect this potential outcome that you have no control over. But the difference between the two is your ability to understand and manage those forces, that risk, right? Your ability to do that, I think, is what differentiates whether or not you are investing or whether or not you're really just hoping to get lucky. If you can manage those things, you understand what they are, you've got maybe some data, some information, some other set of things that can help sharpen your decision making, then that's an investment. That's something that you might be willing to do. And then of course there's the outcome, right? But think about what we just had for lunch today, right? A steak. When I first learned how to cook steak, I was not using fancy technology. I was using my finger. I even used to work with a chef who would take, this is how old school he was, he would take a wire hanger and he would cut the wire hanger and then he would stick one end in a wine cork. So you would have a wine cork with a little wire hanger sticking out of it. Looks exactly like what you're probably envisioning.
Right.
And then he would take the wire hanger and put it into the steak or the fish or whatever it was, and then he would take it out and he would put the tip of it on his tongue. Basically, he was using it to transfer the heat to get a feel for how hot it felt inside there, and then testing it against his tongue to get a feel. If it was super hot, then it was overcooked. If it was still cold or cool, then it was kind of raw, right? Transition, you've got people who just use their fingers and they would say, oh, you can just use this
That's
part.
what you said to me.
Yeah, it was like, well, if it
feel
feels like this, then that's medium. Yeah, but everybody's hand is different. We don't these are all different types of informed ways of guesstimating how well done or undercooked a particular steak is. But there's a tool now. There's a sous vide. There's technology. There's data. There's all of these things that you can use to help you manage, and it just completely eliminates the guesswork. And I think the same is true with money, and I think that's the difference. If those tools don't exist, then you are likely gambling versus making an informed decision and having a level of risk that you are comfortable with. And by the way, if you make a mistake, and you're gambling, like, this is a very expensive mistake versus investing in something you can learn from and apply over and over again. You can't really do that when you don't really have any information because you're just betting to get lucky.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm with you. I feel like I'll tell Bo the same thing that I was told, is that you get to decide. You get to decide whether you call it luck, whether you call it educated guess, whether you call it a calculated risk. Ultimately, it's up to you, but you also have to be really honest with yourself to make sure that you're not going full Delulu and just continuing to plan for and hope for luck. I think what that creates is a sense of entitlement, a results entitlement, where when luck doesn't happen or when the expected outcome isn't what you wanted, you just really lose everything. Like you fall apart. And so there is something to be said around like acknowledging the external forces, but also recognizing the role that you play in being prepared to receive them or manage them.
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's about the outcomes. Like, how comfortable are you with the outcome? If you're comfortable either way, whether things work in your favor or against your favor, that's probably an investment decision that you're comfortable with.
A calculated risk.
A calculated risk. If you're uncomfortable with the outcome, whether it's things happening and, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening, like you couldn't wrap your head around that happening. Like, we talk about earning interest above and beyond the historical 10%. And it was a welcome. It was like, oh wow, didn't expect that. And I was comfortable with it.
Yeah.
When it was luck, I think the surprise would have been like far more jubilant. You know what I mean? Because you really weren't expecting it. You were hoping, right? But when you're not comfortable with either outcome, whether things are working in your favor or not, that's likely a dead giveaway that you are over-reliant on luck.
Now, what about a blessing? Where does that fit in there?
I don't know. Ask your mama. Ask your aunties. I ain't got.
What about favor?
I ain't got no
point of view. Is favor the same as luck?
I ain't got no point of view on that. That's between you and your God. I ain't got nothing to do with it. I tell you what, I bet you won't do these dishes though.
I'm not doing the dishes. I did them last time.
Absolute least
Bring
you
back the
could do.
dice.
No.